The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal.
Great to have you in on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal. And phone numbers to get in at 489-1240. 489-1240, 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. So what happens next for Nebraska basketball? What happens next for Nebraska in the offensive tackle search? And plenty to get to. Mitch Sherman with us in about 20 minutes or so. Mitch will join us from The Athletic. In hour two, the Pride of Ord back at it. Andy Markowski, Husker standout. We'll talk some round ball with him. Michael Bruntz also checks in from Husker 24/7 Sports. And plenty of room for you. Yay or nay, are you bowling tonight?
Tonight I have the night off.
Is it coach's decision?
No, my dad.
Is it going to cost you several hundreds of dollars, like the Week 18 dilemmas with different NFL teams? Who's getting the start, who's getting the catch, or who's coach's decision to not play?
It's pretty simple. My dad, he's got the week off next week, and I think the following week as well, which is that's a team owner decision. He is the team owner, and he is on vacation, so that son of a gun's off to the Dominican Republic while I'm stuck in Nebraska. So I'm taking the night off tonight because he's going to get a couple of weeks off, kicking his feet up, sitting on a beach somewhere.
Okay. So question, did you not say, hey, Dad, love you? There is power in the Dominican. I can plug my laptop into the Dominican. Did you not lobby for that?
Love my father. I am past the days where I'd like to vacation with my father.
Okay.
That does not sound like a peaceful experience for me. And I love Dad, I know you're out there listening most likely. I love you. I don't want to vacation
Will
with
he
you.
listen from the Dominican's a true question.
Hell no, he better not be.
He's on the beach streaming the show off of the YouTube channel in his cabana. I like it. Can watch the show from wherever you're at, Dominican or other spots. Hail Varsity YouTube, like and subscribe. Hail Varsity Radio Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Give that a follow. Different social media platforms to find, and always along the Hail Varsity Radio network. So some intrigue to get into, and, we'll talk with Mitch Sherman, too, about, this year 3 for Nebraska football moving forward. But, I'm interested to kind of get your feedback. I know what I want on the offensive line for Nebraska. I know what the world is right now in the world of college football, and that is you need to be able to flip a roster or put difference makers on the field pronto in today's climate because of name, image, likeness, revenue sharing. You have a fortress when it comes to backing and resources at Nebraska. So while it's a great thing to be able to want to recruit and develop guys on the line of scrimmage from high school, that's still how you're going to win. You're going to be able to need to be able to supplement an offensive tackle, right? Just for example, if some of the guys you have in the pipeline aren't ready yet. And Nebraska's in the process of getting that figured out. Let's get our starting 5 shout-outs. The other Dave is in. NASCAR Eric, good to have you. NASCAR Eric never misses. Love you, dude. Thanks for checking in. Jeff Snitley here, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. And Snitley just makes a quick commentary on PFF grading for offensive linemen. He is not a fan
Neither is our friend Jeremiah Searles.
No, Searles does not like it.
I will say, and I said this to Searles whenever we had him on this fall, I don't like PFF grading for offensive linemen unless it backs up my narrative.
What's the narrative?
Whatever my narrative is that I'm going to choose on that given day. If PFF backs it up, I love PFF.
If the guy's nails in pass pro and hasn't allowed a sack, there's no holding calls, he's a road grader. Hey, PFF's right on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I discredit that somebody's out there doing that due diligence, scrutinizing every snap.
That's the thing about PFF. I don't know if there is.
It just sounds good.
It just sounds good. But that's a conversation I have with Searles, not myself, because I am not a hater by any means. I just think it should be taken...
Grain of salt.
Grain of salt might be a little dramatic. It's not... PFF grades aren't everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what Matt Rule says.
You can look at the PFF grades. I think they can be helpful in determining who's maybe had a good game or a bad game, but don't look and be like, well, this guy's a 71 rater and this one's 75.
You know if you've had a bad play, you know if you've had a bad game. And the difference is you don't have back-to-back bad plays. You're going to get beat around the edge by some of the freak athletes. Now, are you getting beat early or are you getting beat on 3rd and 8 and, it's strip sack time and there's the ball game? I mean, it's the moment.
And
right?
that's one of the things with PFF grades. Like if the guy that you have in pass protection ends up getting a sack on that play, it's going to be a demerit to you in PFF. But like there are times, and we've all seen it happen.
Where the quarterback holds the ball for 3 minutes?
Yeah, I had to watch Russell Wilson in Denver. Quarterback sacks is also a quarterback stat. Mm-hmm. It's not just an offensive line stat, and that's why some of those things need to be
two-way street.
Yes, yeah.
Justin is in. You have Snitley also weighing in on Husker Hoops. We'll get there with Eddie Markowski coming up in hour 2. Brent is here. Arlo is in. Scott says good afternoon. Mr. Erickson's here. Coach Brandon, Uncle Larry, good to have you. Ed Foley is back. Wait till you see who I picked as my replacement. You'll be excited. And the Reverend Rule says Ed's still walking circles around Memorial Stadium mumbling about Dana. That's the Reverend Rule. Great Red Shark is here.
I'd like to think that there's somebody out there listening on the radio that hasn't been tuning in recently. Like, let's see what Schmidt and Elijah have to say today. And they are confused by the fact that we have a guy named Ed Foley in our stream chat.
Ed Foley's been in the stream chat for the last month. Kobe is in. Good to have Kobe checking in. And we'll get more. Wrestling Oranges is here. Also, we need to shout out Brody. Brody is in. Brody says, hire me. I'm cheap. So Brody's throwing his name into the special teams coordinator spot.
Do we think Brody has a little bit of crazy in him?
I don't know. Brody, give us the craziest thing you've ever done in the stream.
Within reason.
Within reason. So you're not getting cuffed or on an episode of Cops later tonight. And tell us that. But no, interesting article with Tom Chattel, World Herald, as he had a chance to catch up with Bill Bush. And the long and short, and I invite you to read it, is that, you have Bill Bush that's doing media, you have Bill Bush that's doing speaking, you have Bill Bush that's got a extensive history. When he was brought in by Nebraska and elevated, we had a chance to sit down with Coach Bush, and it was great to talk to him again. And the guy can get it done. So he's an obvious name. He understands, though, that Matt Rule has a plan and a direction he wants to go. So there's not been a phone call by Matt Rule to Bill Bush per Chattel's sit down with Bill Bush, and there's not been a phone call from Bill Bush to Matt Rule. But I know that there are some really talented coaches that have been a part of Nebraska football's history that, are big Bill Bush guys, two being George Darlington and Frank Solich. So that's who Bill Bush learned under from a recruiting standpoint and got brought up under in the world of coaching when he started out. And he's been to a lot of different programs. So we'll see if that's the direction you go. Of course, Eckler's the name too. And I'm not trying to just retread two names to push buttons, but those are two that you're familiar with. But Matt Rule is going to go his own route. I don't care who he hires as long as he makes the right hire, Elijah. And maybe that is elevating within. Maybe Matt Rule spends some time on special teams himself, because you've got a defensive coordinator in Butler. You've got Coach Snow, that's kind of your overseer as well, and you've got Dana, who's going to be your head coach on the offensive side of the football. So you're the CEO. Your job's to do the following: help evaluate talent, close the deal on the recruiting trail, get to the great folks with NIL and the collective so you have fundage to go talk to former Alabama offensive tackles and win in the portal era, but more importantly, win on the field. And if that means you take on more onus as head coach / special teams dude, then so be it. And I don't know that that's the way it goes, but maybe he wants to do that. I don't know.
Well, we know Rule from his history likes to be somewhat hands-on. Mm-hmm. And as you look at what the offense looks like now with Holgorsen, that's his side of the ball. Mm-hmm. I think Holgorsen would go with the ruler slap on the hand if Matt Rule tried to get involved with the offense. Not in a bad way, just in a Dana Holgorsen is a guy that likes to be in control of his own side of the ball.
And Dana's not far removed from being the old head ball coach.
Exactly. So I don't think Matt Rule will be able to put his fingerprints on the offense much, if at all. You look defensively, and I look specifically at the addition of Snow. Bringing him in as the associate head coach, that seems like to me to be a guy that takes some pressure off of the head coach. Like, hey, you're not the coordinator, but you're going to come in and oversee the defense here, so I can be a little more hands-off with the defense. It's kind of how I read it from the outside with Rule's perspective, bringing in Snow and Butler. It's kind of like, okay, you two guys collaborate. The buck stops with Coach Butler, but Snow's also going to have his fingerprints on it. You go, where is Matt Rule going to be hands-on? The most obvious place to me looks to be special teams. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be a part of this hiring process, is probably somebody that can work in collaboration with Rule, somebody who's going to be a strong recruiter, because special teams, while very important, is like, what, 1/10 of the snaps throughout the game is going to be special teams. Not to say it's not important. We've seen the importance of it.
You have about 15 to 18 snaps a game that are special teams, and unfortunately about 3 or 4 snaps in about 3 or 4 games could be the difference between 2 or 3 wins.
But you'd like to have a guy, I think, that you bring in at special teams coordinator that can get that buttoned up, but can also provide some value to you in the offseason. A guy that can go out and recruit, and as kind of Foley did, go hit the state cycle, or maybe have a tie to Kansas City, maybe have a tie to Miami. I think that's going to be a part of it, especially if Matt Rule is going to be involved in some way, shape, or form on the special teams, which I believe he will be.
No, we'll dive in. What's your thought here? We are going to move Mitch Sherman. Carry the one. Let's move Mitch if we can. We'll get that figured out here in a little bit.
Well, if we move him back to hour 2, we can see if Brunsey would be willing to move up to hour 1.
Yeah, we can look at that. That'd be good.
If we can look into that. We have a little
do
time.
That. Okay, Audible behind Inside Baseball. Elijah Pritchett. He is visiting. We had Tim Verghese do a fantastic job of breaking down his film and kind of the inconsistencies, the talents there. There's some off-the-field stuff as well, and that's where I want to kind of focus in on. And listen, not everybody is a choir boy, clearly, in the world. And you don't want choir boys on your football team. That being said,
I was in choir.
Well, yeah. So you are the exception to the rule, sort of.
I'm still in choir.
You were in choir, and you played offensive line.
I was the president of my choir.
Look at you. You just derailed me here. What I'm saying
you said it.
Well, I did say it. You don't want choir boys. You don't want country club dudes. You want dudes that are mean, nasty, and go to the echo of the whistle and are good at their job. That's protecting the quarterback. That's blocking the edge, and Nebraska needs a tackle, right? So you got Pritchett that is experienced, that's talented. You have off-the-field issues. You weigh all of that. You look at some of Mazuka's history. You also look at Mazuka's production when he was right on the field, damn good. So there's clearly the talent level there. Can you harness the talent level, keep the nose clean off the field, and just go ball? You have 2 years with Pritchett if you can get him here. You've got another kid that Nebraska's looking at, Elijah, that's out of New Mexico State, that is also somebody that is pretty intriguing for Nebraska.
Shiaj Pete.
Yeah, Pete Shiage is a guy that is going to get looked at by a lot of different programs, And, I mean, it's a free-for-all, dude. I mean, it's USC, it's Kentucky, it's Iowa State, it's Michigan, it's Vandy, it's Okie State, all going in on Pete as well. So you've got high-level competition. And then from the FCS level, you have Montana State, Connor Moore. Tim Verghese just tweeted this out. You have Moore that's in the portal. And, Montana State, heck of a program. So there are options there. There's still time for Nebraska, too. You'd like to get that handled in the next week or so from a portal standpoint and add to your offensive line. We know what Dana said. They need to go get some guys. And just have options. Give yourself plenty of options.
And that's what I think these guys might be more options as opposed to ready-made starters brought in. Like you talk about Isaiah World from Nevada. That was a ready-made starter. I think whenever you looked at Fa'amoa from Washington State, kind of struck me as a ready-made starter. Not too sure about any of these guys, whether it be the jump from FCS to Power 5 or whether it be a guy that was arguably the weak link of Alabama's offensive line last year. Not to say he's bad. He's still a starter at Bama, who's always got great offensive lines. But I'm not sure any of these guys strike you as ready-made day one. They're going to step in and be your starter. But it's always better to have options, especially whenever there are some question marks about the guys that are developing behind the starters.
And I'll say this. There is enough Montana/North Dakota State/South Dakota. There's enough FCS dudes on the offensive line that play on Sundays. I think your safe take is if you can get a guy like Moore, go get him. We'll check in with somebody next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. We say hi to Michael Bruntz, senior writer with Husker 24/7 Sports, at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. Bruntsy, do we start off the interview with you and Elijah just toasting, cheersing your Denver Broncos success before we get into all things Big Red?
We can. What do you got, Elijah?
I mean, we talked about it probably 2 months ago. We would have been happy with just being in contention for a wild card place. It's more than that. They secure the wild card place, and now they have a matchup with the Bills, who, last time I checked, a worse Broncos team with Russell Wilson at the helm was able to take down in Buffalo. So,
wow, yeah, that's true. And it's I have an inordinate amount of Chiefs fans in my life, and they made sure on Sunday to point out how limited the Chiefs were and who wasn't playing and all this and all that. I don't really care. Like it's playoff football. We'll see how it goes. But I remember that conversation. It was basically by December, we hope to just be in the hunt, and it ended up better than that.
Have either of you ever ventured into enemy territory, i.e. Arrowhead-wearing Denver gear? My buddy Jeff, the pharmacist, has done that, and he can handle himself. His brother Kyle can handle himself. So they were unscathed, and I think both of you, I don't know that you're frightened, but I wouldn't mess with if that's kind enough for me to say.
Well, I appreciate that. I think the key is to go Raiders fan and bring a shank.
I don't know if my parents should have been referred to CPS for this, but they took me to a Chiefs game when I was a kid down at Arrowhead in like 91, maybe. It was when they still had like the real artificial turf at Arrowhead. That long ago.
Steve DeBerg, Nick the Kick, and the Nigerian Nightmare era.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Barry Word might have been running the ball that day. But yeah, that was the last time I've been to a game down there. So I don't venture in there often.
There is a great story from my dad. I think it's from 84. Let me look it up here. I got Pro Football Reference pulled up. It was 84. So back in 84, the Broncos were about to clinch the number 1 seed in the AFC that season. And my dad goes off to Arrowhead to go see a game between the Broncos and the Chiefs and had a rolled-up banner under his seat that said playoffs clinched or playoffs secured or something like that. And then the Chiefs went and won. He said he just got booed mercilessly on his way out of the stadium.
I will say that Denver fan is frightening on their own when Chief fan visits. So it's a lot like the cinematic classic dodgeball. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge anything, because between both fan bases there may have been wrenches thrown at one another. So good luck to both of you this postseason is how I'll end this moment in Denver Broncos football history as we get to the portal. Brunsey, Nebraska is still hot and heavy in the offensive tackle portal pursuit game. I'm interested to get your take on this Bama kid, Elijah Pritchett. I know Nebraska's hosted him. Sounds like Nebraska is willing to spend to be competitive. You also have New Mexico State transfer offensive tackle Shiza Pete. A couple of names to look at if you're Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of last remaining need, or big need for Nebraska, is figuring out the tackle picture. It's a tough spot to recruit. I mean, it really is. I mean, left and right tackle are premium positions in the NFL, and that's certainly the case out of the transfer portal too. So, they're continuing to take their shots. They had Pritchett on campus today, and Nebraska, with kind of what they have coming back for next year, you need some help. I mean, you have Teddy Prohaska coming back. His injury issues are well documented. Gunnar Gatula, stepped in when he had to at that left tackle spot, probably a little bit earlier than Nebraska had kind of planned for him to be in there. And I guess at least the good thing is for Nebraska, you still have a number of guys who are still entering the portal. I mean, you've got FCS All-Americans that are hopping in now. You still have Ohio State out there with a couple of guys that have said that they're going to enter the portal but have not done so yet, who would be potential tackle options. So there's still guys to be had there, and you got another window in the spring. So I think they'll end up with the right mix of guys that they need. It's just they've kind of been up against relationships and things like that have resulted in guys that they've hosted going elsewhere.
Brunsey, it's been Pritchett that's been the hot name. A couple predictions saying he was going to end up at Nebraska. We'll see how that goes. You mentioned the fact he's on campus today. Do you have character concerns with him, with some of his history of law enforcement activity down in Alabama?
It feels like a guy who might benefit from a scenery, I guess would probably be the best way to put it. You had the well-documented issues with the STD misdemeanor down there. Got into some trouble for speeding as well. So I don't know. I mean, I think Nebraska's probably done its due diligence there. I know it's the portal recruitments are quick ones, but I don't think that's something that can't be overcome. So that's definitely something that you have to consider. But at this point too, with the portal and the way it works, I mean, if a guy is coming on a visit, at that point you're feeling pretty good about what the potential is for him joining your program. So I'm sure a lot of that's already been sifted through from Nebraska's end.
The Pete kid, offensive tackle, really good size, and I'm interested to see Nebraska's hit rate with some of the lower level kids, because they've gone shopping that route as well. Can they play up a level and perform and produce? Because Nebraska's also targeted that level of player.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's kind of two schools of thought, or kind of two tiers of the directions you can go when you're in the portal. I mean, I think there's a ton of value in production and bringing that in, especially if a guy's been at the group of five level. I mean, in Pete's situation, he's played almost 1,900 college snaps. Has played pretty well, and I think that's. There's enough that you can evaluate there to kind of feel good about what you're getting. And, I think sometimes, people get awed a little bit, and I meaning fans here, by a guy that, is at Georgia or Florida or wherever, where he was, second or third on the depth chart. And I think, there's something to be said for finding production and proven production out of the portal. So, if a guy's been productive at the FCS level or at the Group of 5 level, I think you could feel okay about that kind of translating to the Big Ten in most cases. So, I think that's kind of been the lesson as time has gone along, that just because a guy was, in the Sun Belt or wherever, you can find guys that can certainly help you right away in the Big Ten.
Where would you bet? Would you side towards the G5 step up, or finally getting a 4 or former 5-star to pop?
It probably depends on the guy. It probably depends on the position. I mean, you look at what Nebraska's done in the transfer portal in recent years. They brought in guys from Georgia. I mean, you had MJ Sherman, who really benefited, I think, from having multiple years at Nebraska. And I think if you can get a guy like that that's got a couple of years left on the eligibility clock, I think you're probably sitting a little bit better with kind of that former, 4 or 5-star guy. I think some of it too comes down to personality and maturity. I think sometimes when you get guys that are moving up a level, there's probably a level of hunger that's there that maybe might not exist in some cases with guys that are coming from another Power 5 program. So it just depends. I mean, I don't know that there's a perfect recipe for any of this, but I do know that Nebraska, since the portal's been a thing, has been able to find success with guys that were at the FCS level or the Group of 5 level and come to Nebraska and played pretty well.
It's Michael Bruntz with us here. And Bruntz, as we start to wind things down, let's go to Husker Hoops. They're on the road taking on Iowa tonight. Want to get your thoughts? It always feels like Iowa shoots the lights out at Carver Hawkeye whenever Nebraska comes to town. Iowa's got a great offense, objectively speaking, a bad defense. What do you think that means for the Husker Hoops squad tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it feels kind of similar to last year when Nebraska went there and kind of what they're facing. It's going to be a different kind of game. I mean, Nebraska kind of turned that game against UCLA into a rock fight, and that's going to be pretty difficult to do against an Iowa team that, like you said, I mean, the defense is definitely not good, but they can score some points. So, I mean, this matchup to me feels a lot like you need to be watching like the first 8 minutes of that first half. And, if Nebraska is able to kind of keep Iowa from getting out to a fast start, I think they're going to have a pretty good chance to be there in the end. But, Iowa's coming back home with needing to prove something and kind of get back on track. So that's kind of a scary time to be getting a team that can definitely put the ball in the basket. I mean, I really am thinking that this game is going to be more of a test of Nebraska's maturity and kind of how they regroup after what was a pretty emotional win at home, I think, over UCLA.
What do you think happens? Does Bryce get back on the efficiency train? Does Essegian kind of get back to his form, or is it going to be the Biggs and Jawan that kind of get things handled if it does happen? I know Nebraska's dogged by 4.5 tonight.
Yeah, it feels like it's funny. I mean, you look at what Essegian's stat line was against UCLA. I mean, he shot the ball terribly, but was plus 24 in plus minus in that game, which initially when I saw that, I was like, this has to be a typo on the box score. But, they're going to need some guys to make some outside shots. And I think that's where, he can add a little bit more to this offense, and they're going to need him because I'm not expecting Nebraska to go to Iowa City and win a game that each team's scoring in the 60s. I mean, Nebraska's going to have to get out and run a little bit. They're going to have to make some shots from the outside, and it feels like one of those games a little bit where the team that's able to kind of dictate the pace in this one is going to have the most success. I mean, I thought Nebraska did a great job of that against UCLA. They're going to have to do it again in kind of a different way against Iowa.
Michael Bruntz with us at Husker 24/7 Sports. Follow him on Twitter at Michael Bruntz. And Bruntsy, enjoy your week. Cheer for the Donks this weekend, and we'll check in again soon. Thanks for a few minutes, bud.
Hey, no problem, guys. Take care, all right?
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity with you on a Tuesday. Mitch Sherman coming up in hour 2. We'll hear from the Pride of Ord, Andy Markowski, in about 25 minutes. Mike in from Cali, and there's some discussion. We'll hear from Fred Hoiberg here, his comments previewing Nebraska-Iowa here in a couple of minutes. But some talk about Grant Brix, Elijah. Let's go there for a moment because, you know, our folks in the Stream Hail Varsity YouTube channel asking about Brix and, you know, what's the deal? Nebraska has a boatload of offensive line options, okay? They have replacements that are needed, right? I mean, you had Ben Hart here for almost a decade, and I mean that lovingly. You've got Mazuka that's gone. Benny's out at center, right? And you've got two guys that have been here a while, and Teddy P and Turner, that you're just not sure about. So what you do have is Evans, you have Lutoski, and then you've got some works in progress. And with Brix, we know the guy has got the mentality to go maul people on the line of scrimmage. What we don't know yet is it is just a different thing, and Brunsey touched on that. I mean, it's not a case study that's uniform. Guys develop differently. Guys get better or come along at a different timeline. And you saw Gunnar Gatula pressed into action and did a heck of a good job. And you presume that you'll build on that, and you've got something really special. Health and continued success and progress. That's the line right now when you're looking at Gunnar Gatula. With Brix, a guy that is making the transition to 11-man football, okay, and it's not uncommon to be and see a guy get meaningful snaps, rotational snaps after that redshirt season or even redshirt sophomore season going into your third year. But quite frankly, I mean, the norm was always 2 years to play, 3 years to develop. And if you are in need, which Nebraska is because of losses and graduation, to supplement and insert, plug and play, then you do it based on what you feel like your room is at right now. If you're judging the room after spring ball, that's different than going into spring football. So I'm not worried. I'm not freaked out about Nebraska's offensive line. I'm not worried about what the choices and options they have. What I am happy about is I have not seen them throw a kid like Turner Corcoran out there as a freshman, and he played well as a freshman against Rutgers, but you kept the kid out there without other options in Turner his true sophomore season, and it didn't go well. Okay? You're not throwing a kid to the wolves. That's what I don't want from a confidence and ability and body readiness standpoint for Nebraska's offensive line or defensive line for that matter.
And one of the things that is important with the Brix discussion is I do think Brix, of all of the guys that stepped in were freshman offensive linemen last year, probably was the closest to college ready with his body. And I had the same take last offseason, and people disagreed with me. It's the fact that the guy came into college at 6'6", 310 with the lower body size and strength that you need to be a Division I player. Was he 100% ready in that regard? No, not by any means. He's got a long way to go in terms of his pass blocking. He comes from a high school in Iowa that ran the option, and I don't know if they...
It was a veer offense.
I'm not sure they threw the ball once his senior season because they were up by 40 on a lot of teams, and he was killing dudes off the line of scrimmage on that right side, so you just run behind him. You didn't need to throw the football. So, like, that is a massive step up to go from not doing any real pass pro to doing pass pro against Power 4 Big Ten defensive ends that want to rip your head off. Like, it's reality. That's going to take some development. Can he have that ready to go by next season? Yeah, it's possible, but as you talked about, progress isn't linear. You don't know what a guy's progress over the next 9 months is going to look like. So if you're a head coach that makes millions upon millions of dollars and has a season next year that is of utmost importance to make sure that you keep your 5-star quarterback happy, and let's be honest, as it stands right now,
healthy,
the future of your program happy and healthy, like, you can't screw up. So you got to bring in options. And I think, as we kind of hit on in the first segment, I'm not convinced that the guys that Nebraska has as their top targets along the offensive line in the portal right now are ready-made starters where you say just by getting this guy off the portal, we can pencil him into number one on the depth chart. But it gives you more and more options. And if Bricks is ready to go next fall, you can roll with Bricks. If Bricks isn't ready to go, you have some options that you can bring in the portal. That's why I think we are right now in the portal season as we enter mid-January.
Here's what I feel good about. And you heard some praise going into the bowl practices and coming out of the bowl practices with Houston Torres. You had Tapu, are two of the kids that there's probably a higher Nebraska, with some of their latest recruiting classes, they've gotten kids that have a higher starting point, or they come in more college ready. At least we've had a couple of young guys come in, Gatula being one that we've already mentioned.
Well, I told you a couple weeks ago, coaching staff was impressed with what they saw from Houston Torres in his limited time during bowl prep, from where his starting point was. That was further ahead than what they thought he would be.
Sure, and you've seen some development where they felt okay with Segrin as a guy that was on the 2 deep, right? You look at his length and athleticism, you tip your cap there, that was a body that you could turn to. You felt comfortable turning to if you needed to. Gibson Pyle. Excuse me, I apologize about that. But Pyle is somebody you're kind of waiting on. We touched on Bricks. Maciejczak, one of our favorite interviews ever. He's a guy that's still in the lab, and you like his progress. Sam Sledge, Brock Knudsen for sure. The guy that's the best coming back is Evans. I mean, he's really done well, especially as a polar. I mean, you love what he can do at that tackle spot. And then, Toski's fought the good fight. He's been in this program 100 years, and he keeps improving. You just wonder where and if there are guys that are here that they are at their peak. They're not going to get any better. That's not a knock on coaching staff or player. Sometimes you just hit your ceiling. And you have younger guys that are better behind them or have more upside. That's what you got to look at, and you have the portal to look at here too. And there's going to be a plethora of offensive linemen. You don't want to jump too soon, sign the wrong guy, pay the wrong guy, and still have a problem at right tackle.
Well, and based on
what I'm saying,
based on what we're seeing in the portal, I think Nebraska, based on what we saw this past season, probably feels good about what they have at left tackle in Gatula, what they have in left guard in Evans, and what they have at right guard in Lutovsky. Mm-hmm. Those are the guys, also considering Nebraska seemingly hasn't gone too many guys in the portal that play those positions. They went after the one Michigan center, and there's been not much on that front ever since.
That's been mum.
So you wonder if they think they have somebody coming up through the ranks that is going to take that center spot, but you still see a lot of tackle discussion. So the big questions for me with the offensive line are how is right tackle for you? And then you look at depth, but I think everyone feels all right about the depth, just knowing Donnie's history of development. He, on the offensive side of the football, has the best history of development since Matt Rule stepped foot on campus.
Well, Black Hills Brennan wants some Shake Shack. That sounds really good. Our friends, the Big Red Junkies pod, are thumbs up and Rule and crew in the portal. We'll wind down this first hour.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
I love it. We have wagering going on in the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube. Doug says give him the option from a center standpoint with old Sammy Sledge. Big Red Junkies is saying they think Evans will start at center next year. I love talking offensive line way the hell before spring ball even kicks off. It's okay. Scott makes a great point with Jordan Seaton, the 5-star number 1 offensive tackle last year for Colorado as a true freshman, had a PFF grade of a 68. Seaton got better as the year went on. I mean, Colorado clearly was a team better that was able to make some hay and had a tough night in Lincoln, had a tough night at the Alamo. But we'll try and catch up with Barney this week and get his take on some offensive line stuff. Reminder about your friends and high-level volleyball with the Omaha Supernovas as the 2025 season is here Friday the 10th for the home opener at CHI in Omaha. They take on the Atlanta Vibe and be a part of history. Be there to see that championship banner Raised Up at CHI. And, of course, the Supernovas feature Olympians, NCAA champs, All-Americans, plus pro debuts of local superstars in this volleyball state. Tickets on sale now. Head to supernovas.com and get your seats today, not only for the opener, but how about for some season tickets? Get locked in with the Omaha Supernovas. Incredible volleyball, the opener, the season coming up Friday, January 10th. Elijah, I am embarking on, excuse me,
a journey of sickness?
No, I mean, I actually feel really pretty good today. I haven't felt this good for a while. But just I don't have the old cough drops handy, so it's lots of water. This is water, not vodka, despite the accusations in the stream.
I have cough drops somewhere in here. Keep talking. I'll look for you. You're welcome.
They're from 1997, those cough drops. But no, I'm thinking I'm going to throw in the air fryer some hot Italian sausages. But they're the turkey those are my old cough drops. Wonderful. Have you ever had the turkey brats? Like, people have done turkey tacos before, turkey burgers. And you're looking at me like, you loser. No, I'm going to try them.
Okay.
And I'm going to throw them in the air fryer. Have you had them?
I've not had the Italian Italian sausage version of the Italian sausage. Of the turkey sausage.
Right, but they are a little tough to actually put in your basket from an aesthetic standpoint.
If you go in expecting a pork sausage, you might be slightly disappointed.
But I've done the chicken sausages before.
If you've done that and you enjoyed the chicken sausages, you'll enjoy the turkey sausage.
I tolerate them.
Yeah, exactly. If you go in expecting pork, you're going to be disappointed. If you expect an alternate to pork that is healthier and will sustain you and kind of keep that craving away,
I can eat
you'll enjoy it a lot.
I can eat like 4 of them for 1 or 2 brats.
Big Red Junkies chimes in and says, "Oh, Schmitty, come on, man."
Right, I know. Just take the plunge. I was kind of a bad monkey, though, at PBA. I think I had 3 hot dogs. It was good. 3 Fairberries, man.
We never got around to 9 dogs, 9 beers, 9 innings this summer.
I know. Maybe we need to go to a hockey game, or is that over?
No, Lincoln Stars are in full swing.
Okay.
You got the U.S. National Development teams coming to town this weekend. That's a free shout-out for the Stars.
Dude.
I love the Stars, though.
There was some glorious nights at the old Icebox back after turning 21. All right, Andy Markowski's coming up. Mitch Sherman next hour.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal, the pride of the Ord, back with us as we talk all things basketball, some Husker men and women's basketball, and some Pius girls hoops. Andy Markowski here at Markowski_Andy. Andy, 2025's treated you pretty well, man. Thanks for the time today.
No, we're from a basketball world. The Husker women won, and Pius won over the weekend. So yeah, it's off to a good start. The weather could be a little warmer, but hey, it's basketball season. We're indoors.
Yeah, no kidding. Bundle up, right? And as you made the march a lot of years from the parking lot to the Devaney Center, and some of us students made the march from the 16th and Vine region to the Devaney Center, and it just never felt as good as you walked into the Bob and you smelled the popcorn and you found your seats. But 'tis the season to try and avoid the chill. Nebraska was so good. We'll start with the UCLA win, Andy, as the Big Red able to kind of out Mick Cronin, and manufactured some points from the free throw line. How did you feel about Nebraska going into that? And does the win have any weight going into tonight for you, with Nebraska's chances, almost a mulligan-type opportunity for Nebraska again in Iowa City after a big win a year later?
Yeah, the UCLA game. We had our alumni weekend and had a chance to do dinner on Friday, and I know Coach Hoiberg and Nate Linzer both were. We're really nervous with just the ability of UCLA to be physical and defend, and their steal rate was right at 30%. So a third of the time they're stealing the ball from a college opponent, which is just a crazy good stat. So the fact that we were able to kind of match their physicality, and I think we only ended up with 12 turnovers, against a team that had shown the ability to really defend. I thought was a really gritty, tough win, and I don't think there's a lot of carryover into Iowa. Iowa's a very, very different team, right? They want to outscore you, averaging 90 points. They're one of the teams that Nebraska has struggled with because they do shoot it at 4 and 5 spots. So, they'll have Nebraska probably in rotation, and ability to get a bunch of open threes on the backside is what Nebraska's defense is willing to give up. And, I think this is a game that our offense is probably going to have to be good. And, you hope you can outscore a good Iowa offensive team on the road.
The Iowa being a good offensive team, we've known that. It's been kind of Fran McCaffrey's calling card going back at least a decade at Iowa. They're going to shoot the ball well. They're going to shoot well from behind the arc. And you look at this year's team, they've only put up less than 80 points once. Only put up less than 80 twice this season. That is just ridiculous numbers from Iowa's offense. Like, how do you go from a team that is expected against your defense to put up like 60 to a team that is going to be putting up a whole bunch of points? How do you make that stylistic shift if you're the Husker basketball team in only a couple days?
Well, Coach Hoiberg is willing to play a high possession game. I mean, offensively, he likes to play with more pace. I think through the years and getting more familiar with the Big Ten, he has slowed his offensive pace and really focused on being able to defend in the half court as those metrics are needed to win in a very physical, more half court league. But I do think how we play offense and in our depth. I don't think the pace in the high possession game is going to make us nervous. Now, we haven't shot the ball, great from the three. We really struggled early. Shot it okay through a stretch, and then the last couple of games haven't shot it as well. If you look at the Oregon State, Southern, and then the UCLA game. So you look at an Essegian and some of our off the bench players are going to have to come in and find ways to really score, and you're going to have good productivity from your third, fourth, and fifth player, and probably need multiple players in double figures to have a chance to win tonight.
Andy Barkowski with his Husker Standout, Hail Varsity Radio. What's either a key percentage or a make number for you tonight with Nebraska from three-point land?
Yeah, I do think we have to make 8 or 9 threes. I think our ability to score on the block could help us. I like our physicality around the rim. I think a guy like Morgan can go in and be effective in this game. Iowa's not a super physical team around the rim. They're giving up 77 points a game. I think Bryce Williams and Gary athletically will be two of the better players on the court. So, I don't think it just comes down to three-point makes, but I do think offensively we got to have a low turnover and, certainly a 50%-ish field goal percent, combined twos and threes to have a chance to score in the, probably the low 80s, which it appears is going to be needed to beat Iowa.
Overall, what's your take on the Big Ten? What do you think of the league so far this season?
Yeah, I thought last year, you had teams that factored into the national championship discussions. I look at Illinois and then obviously Purdue. I don't know if they have that caliber of team. However, I do think just the overall depth through 14 or 15 is just a lot of really good, well coached, upperclassmen teams. All teams have invested in the portal. There's just not a lot of easy wins when you start looking at that schedule. So I think the overall bubble depth this year is going to be a fight to see, 7 through 13 on the kind of the teams in that range, which ones can play well late in the year to kind of get those last couple NCAA tournament spots. But I don't know if I see an elite team that will factor into that, Final Four national championship discussion, which, puts Nebraska as a chance to win, certainly all the home games and certainly going on the road. I think most games are winnable games if they go and play well places.
What things are you looking for, Andy, to determine if this year's team will be better at going on the road than last year's team? It was a rough first go when you went up to East Lansing and took on Michigan State. In the upcoming road games, what are you going to be watching for just to see if this team has a better chance, a better mentality to be able to go on the road and get some wins?
Yeah, I do think this is a mature group. You look at the culture of Williams and Gary, and I think our point guard play is more stable, which I think is like the quarterback position. You look at Worcester and Ulis, and then the ability to play Williams as your point guard is needed. I thought last year, just the inconsistency of point guard play set them up to have really, inconsistent performances on the road. So I do think that position is better. It's more stable, which I think gives you a chance to go on the road and play maybe some different styles. Getting Ulis back from the ankle will be big. I think they were a little limited in the Rainbow Classic, having to play Bryce at more one than what they wanted to. It's nice to have him go there if needed, but certainly having Worcester and Ulis, handle the point guard keeps Bryce in more of an off-guard scoring position. So, I think rebounding, they went out and got bigger and longer. Butengel and Mia are both, physically, really big players that puts Gary and Williams to the 2 and the 3. So I think they rebound the ball better, and I think their point guard plays better, and I think those things will transfer and maybe be more competitive and have a chance to win a few more road games.
With Bryce, do you kind of expect him to continue, for lack of a better term, his dominance? Now, I know it was a tough night from the field against UCLA. That's going to be what you face against UCLA, but he found ways to get to the line, which is important. And moving forward, is Bryce one of those guys that can be a difference maker in this league, or do you think he already is when it comes to getting a key make or a key shot to get a possession, to get a score in a tight game?
No, I think Bryce he's certainly an all-league, top 10 caliber player for this conference, if not top 5 based on, what he's done. Now, this league is really well coached and it's well scouted, and teams are not going to, let things happen for Bryce easily. My biggest concern last year, I felt they scored it from more spots. Casey, even Welcher, Mast was really efficient offensive player. No doubt Williams is the number 1 option. Gary has been the number 2 option, which, give Gary credit. He's put a lot of work into his offensive game. He's shooting at a better clip from the 3. The third scorer concerns me. Esiason at times has been that guy, but he can be taken out due to a good scout or just defensive focus. Butengel got 15 into the finals of the Diamond Head, Classic, which I thought that was the difference. You look at Morgan getting double figures on against UCLA. I don't know who that third scorer is. I think consistently, if they can't get, one of those 3 to consistently get in double figures, I think that could be the limiting factor for this team. Getting a good seed in NCAA or even making the NCAA. So that's my one question mark. I think Williams, can always find a basket, can get you a chance late games when it's close. But we're going to need a third and fourth scorer to be consistent to make sure we're in a game with a couple minutes to play to give Williams a chance to win it.
Last night here on the Husker men's team, Andy, before we switch gears and talk the women, I want to get your thoughts on the rotation of the big men that we've seen this year. I think the team misses Rink Mast. He'd be a big addition. I think about what the 2-man game would be with Bryce Williams and Rink Mast, but alas, you're not going to have Mast this season. What do you make of how Fred has utilized Mia, Morgan, and Butengel kind of as a big man rotation? Do you think that works as it stands right now, or does it still need some fine-tuning?
No, I like all 3 options. They're all 3 different. Mia is certainly limited offensively, but there's times that his size and athleticism is needed. Look at the Creighton game against like a Kalkbrenner. I think Mia was strategically added to give us a piece that we haven't had. I think Morgan at times against more undersized front lines is effective at the 5 as a block scorer. Against elite size, I think he has struggled. Butengel, I think, is immensely talented. the ability to play him and Mia together is nice with 6'11" and 7 foot, but also Buchengel moving him to the 5 gives you a few of the things that Mass gave them, the ability to spread, to pass, to enter the ball offensively with your 5. So I like all three. They're all three different. I think Fred's done a creative way of each game being able to play a different style. So I like that front line. I think when you play Gary and Williams as your 2 and your 3, positionally, that's a really long, really good defensive team. And, I think the rebounding stats have shown that we're able to play a bigger, more athletic lineup. So, yeah, I like those additions, but yet, there's a lot of basketball to be played.
Andy, let's talk the Husker women. They're coming off a stretch. Well, I guess they're not coming off a stretch. They're still in a stretch. And it's one of the hardest of this season. Within a couple-week stretch, you're taking on a top 15 Georgia Tech team, the number 1 team in the land in UCLA, a top 5 team in USC. You rebounded off those losses by getting a win against Penn State, but now it's another tall task with Michigan State coming to town tomorrow. What do you expect from the Husker women in terms of response? What are you looking for tomorrow night?
Yeah, there were stretches. I thought they played pretty good against Penn State. Kind of fell asleep at the wheel and had to kind of battle the last 4 minutes to re-separate. Wednesday, Michigan State's a terrific team. They press. They play a little different style than a lot of the other Big Ten teams. So Nebraska's going to have to do a better job of taking care of the basketball. And offensively, they're just not playing real efficient right now. Hopefully, inside Alexis can find more efficient ways to finish, and then shooting the basketball against a team like Michigan State, you're going to have to make some shots. Which at home this team has been good, but as you mentioned, it was a really really tough road trip. I think maybe they knocked some rust off against Penn State, and hopefully they can play their best basketball in a month against a really talented Michigan State team Wednesday night.
What are some of the lessons, Andy, as a former player yourself, you can take from that double dip out in La La Land against SC and UCLA? They're really really talented. They're loaded. What do you carry with you the rest of the season from those early disappointments, I guess?
Yeah, you said it. Both of those teams are equipped to compete for a national title, and I don't know if Nebraska, is in that equation, and those games kind of prove that there's a delta in talent and size and athleticism, and I think certainly that. You can't let those teams, ruin your season, right? It was a tough 3-game stretch, coming at home and winning against Penn State. You have to focus on what you can control, which is, playing well at home, winning at home, and finding some games that you can win on the road. I think they probably keep that in perspective, knowing that those teams are really good, and I thought UCLA just went into Indiana and controlled that game as well, right? So that just shows you that there's a separation. So the good thing is we played them both early. It was over Christmas. No one was really paying attention, and we don't have to play them again until the conference tournament. I think that's probably the takeaway, Chris.
No, I absolutely understand that. Andy, last thought. Congrats to the Pius girls. Scott's a heck of a squad. Big-time win over the weekend. Pius, after that 10-1 start. And you, Coach Pasota, and the Bolts are, making some noise, and that's not uncommon this time of year.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chris. And, Scott's got a great team, a team that finished runner-up to Britt Prince, Elkhorn North team 4 in a row. So, fortunately, our kids are battling. They're getting better. We've got a fun group that, I think they like each other, and they've been coachable. And we still have some tough games left. Our schedule's a little wonky this year with Pius going back to B and the Hack not willing to play us here in the city. So we've got some Bellevue East and Millard South and Tapio and Lincoln Christian, and just a lot of different teams that we haven't played in a while. So a lot of tough games left. So we'll stay the course, and hopefully we have a chance to play into March and get to PBA.
Should be good. Andy Barkowski with us, the pride of Ord, Husker hoops, some high school thoughts, and of course, Big Red women's basketball. Andy, we'll talk again. Thanks for a few minutes, bud.
All right, Happy New Year, guys. Take care.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. We are going to try and run down, as Mitch is texting, says, try him back. We'll let Mitch Sherman in to release the Fury. Good to get coordinated with him. 489-1240, 800-825-5865. Kind of checking in during the commercial break on Kirk Herbstreit and his thoughts on just kind of his feelings towards game day and just the revitalization he has experienced with Coach Saban and Pat McAfee being a part of it. South Dakota State quarterback Mark Gronkowski, stud quarterback. He is expected to transfer to Iowa. So Hawkeye football getting a win there in the portal. Nebraska in search of more help on the offensive line. And, of course, a big one in Iowa City tonight for Nebraska basketball. That'll tip off at 7 on Peacock. I have already offered to bring dinner. I have offered to help with laundry. I need to find my wife's password and keyword. So if I want to watch downstairs, Elijah, I'll be able to do it on the big screen. I know it's already kind of pre-programmed in upstairs, but I want to go downstairs to watch Nebraska-Iowa tonight.
Is the password turkey sausage?
It is not. We got to get Mitch Sherman's take on this. Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic at Mitch Sherman. Mitch, I'm calling an audible in the spirit of clean eating, and I'm going with the old turkey Italian sausage versus the normal Italian sausage. Have you embarked on such an adventure?
Are you talking about like what kind? Is this a sandwich or what? What do you got going on here?
No, I'm just gonna. I bought like a 5-pack of turkey sausages. I think they're Genio, right?
So this is still pretty much clean eating, right? I mean, it sounds like you're going with the healthier route on the sausage,
right? But it's turkey, not the good old stuff you get at the ballpark. So, have you had it before? Is my question.
I'm sure I have. It wasn't anything that stood out to me. If you're just talking about like turkey sausage, I'm sure there's been a time. I don't know that it was deliberate on my part to like go to the store and get some turkey sausage, but I'm sure at some point it was served to me. Yes.
Okay. Because people are wondering if I've gone the turkey bacon route. I'm being condemned for that. I bought it once and was told
not a good idea
to not come home ever again.
I've definitely done that, and I mean, if you're going to have bacon, like either have bacon or don't have bacon. Don't try shortcuts on that. Like if you don't want bacon, great. I mean, good for you for being healthy and thinking about yourself. But if you're going to have bacon, I think you need to have the real stuff.
See, and I come from a family that doesn't really eat much pork at all. So I'm very familiar with the turkey sausage and the turkey bacon and even the veggie bacon and the veggie sausage. And I will say turkey sausage, so much better than turkey bacon.
Okay.
Turkey bacon
that makes me hopeful for tonight.
What throws me off with the turkey bacon is they paint that white line on it to try and confuse you. You're not confusing anybody.
I'll tell you this. I dropped turkey bacon on the floor, and all 3 dogs just looked at me and wagged their tail. They didn't go for it. That's pretty good. Mitch, we can make some sort of portal reference, regular bacon or turkey bacon when it comes to who you get and who you keep. But I'm interested to get your thoughts here on just Nebraska and their chase with the offensive tackle. I know Connor Moore, Montana State All-Americans, put his name in the portal. Pritchett's the visitor. And then, of course, Pete out of New Mexico State. And we were talking last hour about Nebraska's offensive line prospects. Guys just develop at different rates, Mitch. You know this. And what do you think? If you were to project Nebraska's board, do you think that Pritchett's number 1 on the board, or is it just an open board where you're just bringing folks in? I mean, this is the 3rd, 4th, 5th offensive tackle they've had come through.
Yeah, I think it's fluid. I think at the moment he probably is, or this morning when everybody woke up, he was it. And then, I mean, I can't pretend to know how they feel about the kid from New Mexico State or Montana State. But, yeah, I mean, if you've been a starter at Alabama and a former 5-star and you look like he does, there's a lot of tools there to work with. So he had his struggles this year in the SEC in the pass rush, against the pass rush, in pass protection, but I don't think that's something that should be read too much into. Jalen Milroe's not the easiest quarterback to play right tackle for because of the amount of time because of how good Milroe is and how much of a dual threat he is and how much time he spends in the pocket and then moving out of the pocket. Like if you're a right tackle and you've got a guy who takes 3 steps and boom, and the ball's out, like you're going to give up fewer pressures and fewer sacks, but that's not Milroe. So if he's rolling to his right, the right tackle does his job. The next thing you know, the defensive end, gets off the block and there's a hurry or a sack, and it's not necessarily the right tackle's fault. Now, I'm sure he would say in assessing his play that it could be better, and, Alabama would probably say the same thing, but I'm not getting caught up in that until I see, what it's like if he ends up at Nebraska. Like, I think he's definitely an upgrade, and he's definitely somebody that Nebraska wants. So to me, he's probably target number 1, but that's without studying the other guys. It's just seeing what his credentials are, both out of high school and what he's done at the college level.
As you look at the guys in the portal right now, Mitch, and I said this last hour, I want to get your thoughts on it. Are we past the point of guys within the portal that you can pencil in as the number 1 guy right away if you're able to get them in, specifically along the offensive line? Because I look at some of these tackle prospects, and you look at them and you go, yeah, are they potentially upgrades to what you have? Sure, but they're not the slam dunks like the Isaiah Worlds and the Fa'amoas of the world, if you will. Do you find any truth in that statement?
Yeah. I think Pritchett he doesn't come. I mean, he's coming here for, if he comes, it's high 6 figures, 7 figures. Mm-hmm. That's starting. Okay. You're not coming in to sit the bench for that. Now, I mean, you got to win the job, but the others who played at a lower level, either FCS or G5. Yeah, I mean, you might be able to say that, but again, that's without me knowing them all that well. I think the New Mexico State offensive tackle, and this is all just so new that I can't. I'm sitting here right now. I'm driving in my car to take my son to baseball. I can't even tell you his name unless I'm looking at my one of my screens. But I believe he's a multi-year starter and was like an all-conference caliber player. So that's not coming in to be a reserve. That's coming in to start. I don't think the time that you go in the portal necessarily dictates whether you're a slam dunk or somebody who's going to be a project, because you might have a layer of players or a wave of players. Matt Rule described it as waves back in December when one of the times that he talked about how the transfer portal is going to play out. He said it's going to come in waves, and this wave isn't necessarily any less deep or any more full of starting caliber talent than the guys who were going in the first week of December. It's just they had different reasons. Maybe they wanted to play in a bowl game. Maybe they thought they were good at their former school until the former school went and got other players out of the portal, and then the situation changed. So it's really just different for all players and across all positions. You might have a bunch of corners in the portal now who are not slam dunk starters, but at offensive tackle you do. And I think with the quarterbacks, that's maybe the one place where much like in recruiting out of the high schools, the quarterbacks who go in the portal at the beginning are probably the bigger names, and that's something you can take to the bank.
Mitch Sherman's with us from The Athletic, Locked On Nebraska. Check his podcast out as well, weekday mornings. So, Mitch, wanted to get your take here on special teams coordinator. And what's your feel? Is it timeline-wise, is it going to be end of this week? Is it go into post-C college football playoff? What do you think here from a rule standpoint?
It's been quiet. That could change any minute. Some names could pop, but it's just been quiet. You hear the speculation about Mike Eckler. But not anything that's coming from the inside of Nebraska. I mean, people are going to be interested. I think if this job is thrown out there as one that's just open to everybody, and if it's made known in the agent and coaching world that Nebraska has an opening, and Matt Rule is ready and willing to just take interviews and discuss it with anyone who might be a qualified candidate, and maybe that's the case, maybe it's not. But if it is, I think that it vaults to the top of the list of open jobs, or close to the top of the list of open jobs in all of college football, and all of football, short of maybe a Power 5 or an NFL team having an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator spot. You're talking about a coordinator spot at a Big Ten school, a well-resourced Big Ten school, a top 5 resourced Big Ten school. You know what it's going to pay. You know what the room for career growth is in a spot like this. And honestly, the bar is low. Like if you can make a special teams unit across the board, it's just like above average or slightly above average at Nebraska, like you're going to be doing great work based on what it's been for the last decade or close to a decade. So I think it's a very coveted job if in fact it is in that place or gets to that place where it's open for all comers. And Matt Rule is either way, he's going to have outstanding candidates to choose from. Like he should have his pick. When he looks at the list of coordinator options that he's got on his desk at the end of this week or the end of next week, I think they want to have some. I don't know, but I would expect they want to have somebody in place around by not much later than the time that the team gets back, because that's when work starts on 2025. That's when the build towards spring practice, it's all just like a domino. And if you don't have an important position like that that's in place for a key part of your off season, then you're behind. And special teams is the place where Nebraska can probably least afford to be behind right now.
Mitch, about 45 seconds. How you feeling about Iowa City? Does Nebraska keep rolling for men's basketball, or does Iowa do what Iowa does to Nebraska in Iowa City tonight?
Well, they're probably going to score a bunch of points. It's just Iowa. So Nebraska's going to have to shoot it. I mean, Nebraska's defense, I think, is a bit of a separator in this game from the way things have been in past years when these two teams have met, especially at Carver Hawkeye, in that Iowa just finds a way to score 90 points or 85 points seemingly every time. And Nebraska hasn't probably had as strong or consistent of a defense as it does this year. But I still think it's going to be that kind of a game. It's not going to be the kind of game we saw Saturday at PVA. It's just so interesting. In this series, I think more than others in the Big Ten, Nebraska's they go into Iowa City as like 40 to 45% win probability. And I don't mean like that's just what I put it in my mind. And if they were in Lincoln, it would be 75 to 80%. There's just such a difference between the way Iowa plays at home and on the road. And the same with Nebraska, honestly. But defense travels. So I think if Nebraska can play intense defense in this game, maybe Iowa gets frustrated, and I don't know what we can expect from Iowa with its defense after the 116 points that it gave up last week against Wisconsin.
Mitch, enjoy your week. Thanks for a few minutes, bud.
Okay, thanks, guys. Take care.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Open phones here till 6 as Nebraska and Iowa get rolling here at 7. That'll be on Peacock. That'll be on our great affiliate, AM 590. Omaha's home for Husker basketball.
And I think this might be, with me not having Peacock, might be a Pavelka and Muehlheisen game for me.
Good for you, man. Love both of them. Good dudes. Big thanks to Andy Markowski, talking hoops, getting things kicked off. We talked with Brunsey in hour one. And we got to get Mule back on the show. We'll do that here sooner rather than later. But you know what my gut says? Like, is as good as Saturday was from a kind of a gut check, toughness test ball game, I just don't feel great about tonight because, I mean, Mitch nailed it. Iowa, just the way things are trending is that Iowa's going to be ticked off and they'll shoot it better. Yeah. They're going to be challenged and screamed at and challenged by Mount Fran. And that doesn't mean they're going to turn into a lockdown defensive team, but they just shoot it. They do well. They perform well at home. Now, Nebraska's defense is going to go in. What the wild card is Nebraska's maturity. They've already been slapped by Sparty. And this Nebraska team seems to be more in the moment versus kind of resting on their laurels. So that is different for me. And I do think their defense will travel. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they win. I'm not giving them no shot. There's not slim to none with Slim leaving town. But if they go get tonight, that's huge. That's a back pocket win, man.
And there's something I said last week that I'll bring back up today. What Nebraska has, I don't think they necessarily had last season that can help in a game like this. Where, let's be honest, Nebraska's the more talented team when compared to Iowa. And that's not a slight towards Iowa. I mean,
Iowa's just got a bunch of dudes who can catch and shoot 4 or 5 spots on the floor.
Yeah, I think 1 to 5 though, and especially given some guys off the bench, I think Nebraska's a more talented roster, but Carver Hawkeye's been a tough place for Nebraska to go and play since they joined the Big Ten. The guy that you look at that I think needs to be big tonight is Bryce Williams. Not only is the Iowa defense not one that makes me worry about him being able to go and get his, like we did with UCLA, which, let's be honest, Bryce didn't have his best day as a Husker. But
who can guard him?
But that's the question for Iowa. Whenever Nebraska needs a bucket tonight, and there's going to be moments where Iowa hits a couple threes, or Nebraska's offense gets a little bit out of rhythm, or the crowd out there at Carver Hawkeye gets into it, and you just need a bucket, they have a guy that can go get you a bucket at 3 levels. Mm-hmm. Inside, mid-range, and from deep. And I think that can be a big factor tonight with this one. I mean, you can leave his gaudy scoring numbers to the side. I think a game like that would help. But just his ability to go get timely buckets might be huge tonight for the Husker basketball team. Whenever things might start slipping away from him, you can just go to Bryce Williams. He can go get you a bucket.
Well, and Kobe says Essegian's going to go for 5 threes tonight. Well, that's kind of my number. Like, what he needs a bounce back, and he didn't take awful shots against UCLA. They just didn't fall. He needs to come back and torch Iowa.
Well, if not Essegian, somebody. You need one of those wild cards, which your wild card options, as it feels like right now, offensively, Essegian, Burke,
Captain Morgan.
Those are kind of your wild card options. You're going to need one of those guys. You need Bryce to go be Bryce. Does that mean 30 plus?
Gary
not necessarily.
Needs to be Gary.
Well, and Gary needs to be that steady
14,
force that he's been all year.
10 guy.
14, 10, and a block or 2.
Yeah.
That's what you have come to expect from him, and he's pretty consistent with that. Of the 3 things I'm going to list here, he's what I'm least concerned about. Defense travels, especially with him. He tends to get his 14 and 8 to 12 rebounds. Can you get one of those wild card guys? Essegian, Berke, Captain Morgan. Can one of those guys step up and do a little bit more for you than they typically do?
Well, and what's your likelihood to get 27 free throw attempts on the road? Because if you're not shooting, if you have a bad shooting night, how are you going to score? You found a way to score a lot of points, 15 free throws in the second half against UCLA.
Well, is Kelly Pfeiffer reffing tonight?
I don't know. Let's hear from Fred, because it is going to be a shift in styles from lockdown to free reign. Here's Coach Hoiberg on the upcoming Iowa matchup. Cut 1.
Iowa's second in the nation in scoring. They're so potent in their attack. They've always got 5 guys on the floor that can make a play and make a shot. They don't turn it over. They do a really good job of finding the hot hand, and they run a lot of very random type action. So it's a hard game to prep for, just because of all the different things that they do. To keep you moving, and it's one of the best ball movement, player movement team that we'll face all year. And we got it handed to us in their building last year in a similar win, an emotional win at home, and then we did not respond well. We have to be better this game if we want to have any chance. And it was the start. They were up 17-2 on us. We did a good job coming back. I think we had it tied, maybe even took a 1-point lead in the second half, and then they got really hot. And they're really hard to shut off if you let them get comfortable and let them get confident. So there's a game we have to go out and get off to a good start. I anticipate them, coming out all over the place with what happened in their last one, similar to what happened to us against Michigan State. So, it's an important game. All these conference games are, and we're going to try to go out and continue to play, confident basketball, unselfish basketball, and hopefully give ourselves a chance.
Tell about the response. How does Iowa respond? How does Nebraska respond? And you know what? We talk about that emotional maturity for Nebraska, more from Coach Hoiberg after a big win.
Well, believe me, we talked a lot about it after the game the other day, and you could see it. I think the guys' emotions were pretty much in check after that game. I didn't think guys were too high. After the Purdue game, when you get a court storm like we did, I think the guys went out and had a lot of fun after that game, and then we didn't bounce back with any type of energy early in the game at Iowa. And again, if you're not ready to go in this one, their pace, the way they get the ball up the floor, if your first 3 steps aren't with urgency, it's going to be a really long night of basketball. And again, I think Iowa's got their talent on the offensive end is as good as anybody, not only in the league but in the country. And you look at the games they've played, they had Iowa State down double digits. I think Iowa State might be the best team in the country right now. You look at what at Michigan, after they got off to a slow start, had a chance to win it. They had a shot at the buzzer to win the game, knocking off Northwestern at home as well. So this team is really good. You don't look at what happened in the last one. They're going to bounce back with a lot of fire, and we better be ready for it.
They've been right there. Fred detailed their schedule, their win-loss. Iowa comes in at 10-4. You know, I'm anxious to see Sam Hoiberg kind of stack his performance. He was so key for Nebraska. Can he do that on the road? Sam's growth and impact here. Here's Fred. Cut 3.
You know, I think it was Sam's best overall game from start to finish against UCLA. The effort plays, diving on the floor, the steal on Mac and transition when we were in a bad way when they had numbers to get it to Burke for a 3 on the other end. And, the big steal late on Mac as well. And, hitting the shot, the big 3 there in the second half. So I thought Sam was terrific. And, we're going to need him to continue to give that defensive energy. He does such a good job of talking when he's out there in the floor. He's in the right spots. And, it's good to see him knock down a shot. He's been shooting it well in practice, and hopefully that gives him some confidence on the offensive end. But, yeah, you always know what you're going to get from him on the defensive end of the floor.
Defense travels, so does that spark, and Sam Hoiberg's been a spark the last 2 years for Nebraska. We'll wind it down, a Tuesday edition with Hail Varsity. Always like and subscribe, Hail Varsity YouTube channel.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Hail Varsity. Always take us with on your timeline. Hail Varsity YouTube, like and subscribe there. And don't forget, search for Hail Varsity Radio. When you get to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, download the podcast, tell a friend, give us a rating, good, bad, or ugly. Love the feedback. Reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelt. Saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. As we'll sneak in a little bit more Fred Hoiberg here. 489-1240 to dial up. And, it should be all right. There is the... Instead of DEF CON, the FranCon system, Elijah, you sent me this run down. It starts at 9, goes all the way to 1. The lower the number, the more the ire, correct?
And we'll see what level he reaches this year. Because with this year, it was lower expectations with the Iowa basketball team. So with lower expectations where you'd be happy to sneak in your way into the tournament at the end of the season, does he reach those same level of FranCon? We'll find out tonight.
Yeah, FranCon 9 is calm, extremely rare. FranCon 8, slightly irritated, signs of facial contortion. FranCon 7 is upset. That's the default setting. FranCon 6, very agitated, note defensive stance. FranCon 5, the pout, hands in, Hulk smash motion. FranCon 4, mad again. That is when you have ineffective pouting, gets mad again. FranCon 3 is bleeped. Fran is on the move. FranCon 2, the calm before the storm. Meltdown is imminent. FranCon 1 is full meltdown. Nothing escapes the mad Fran's wrath. That's a great list.
Yeah, we'll see what level we reach.
Expression.
We'll see what level we reach tonight, especially given that him and Fred seem to have a amicable relationship. You wonder if that changes the sideline antics at all. Antics might not be the right word. The emotions.
Yeah, he's intense. I talked to my buddy Iowa Russ, and Iowa's been a good basketball program. They've been to the tournament, 3 of the last 4 years? It's fair to say.
I thought it was all 4.
Has it been 4 in a row?
Oh no, they missed one. They may have missed one in there.
But the point of it is they're good. They have shooters. They've had a conference player of the year 3 years ago. They've just not delivered in March.
Well, the big difference now, no McCaffrey's on roster.
I know.
Whatever will Fran do?
What about the ranking part of this? You had Hoiberg asked about it. Just outside the top 25, you're coming in at 27. Are you using that as motivation? Does Nebraska pay Fred, does he pay any attention to the ranking part? That's cut 7. This
No.
Is yeah.
No, I don't. See you guys. Thanks.
Peace out. See ya. Later. Let's sneak in real quick here. Bryce, as he continues to take steps here. He'll be big tonight. No time. Okay. Well, we'll see how Nebraska fares tonight on the Peacock.
Well, Schmitty, do we have time for that?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just get it loaded up. And you use Fred's index finger to say no. Talk tomorrow at 4. Thank you.